Hello, and welcome to the You Podcast.
The podcast all about the news and you. We're your hosts, Julia,
And Yeva.
and this week we are going to speak about mental health during the lockdowns and what we can do to help ourselves.
But first, in case you missed Friday's news, here's a recap.
Governments across the world have responded to the military coup in Myanmar as tensions rise in the country, where the army is now back in charge, and have introduced a year-long state of emergency. Yet the UK government has received criticism from the opposition leaders for falling short in response to the situation.
According to the London Assembly, the goal of vaccinating 1.5 million by mid February will be hit. The UK is prioritizing getting people a first dose and is delaying the second shot for up to 12 weeks. Right now, over 10 million people have already received the first dose in the UK.
A delayed response to the Grenfell fire in 2017 has left many flat owners concerned about their safety and bills of up to £45,000. Many are stuck in potential unsafe homes, which they are unable to sell. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has announced that a plan will be put in place to solve this problem soon.
The music world is shocked after the rock metal singer Marilyn Manson was accused of physical and sexual abuse by his former partner, Evan Rachel Wood. The story broke out on Monday, and throughout the week, she's been receiving support from people from the industry and fans who are in awe of her courage and honesty.
Following a successful campaign, #FilterDrop, the Advertising Standards Authority have stated that beauty filters appear misleading and are in the process of applying restrictions in regards to online influencers. This could make it compulsory for them to state when they use a beauty filter, so that their followers know.
And lastly, London fitness organizations have had to adapt to the COVID-19 restrictions, with indoor gyms in the UK having closed multiple times. However, people from the industry are now creatively coping with the limitations.
Now, the recap is done for today.
So, what do you think about all of this, Julia?
Well, speaking of fitness, I got into running. I've always run a bit, but in January I started doing it a bit more, I guess. I even ran 5 kilometers this morning, and I feel like it helps me a lot, like to leave the room and do something else than sit in front of the computer. I usually also relax by watching a movie. So now I spend the whole day in front of the screen. So I feel like especially now it's good to get out.
Yeah, I get that, absolutely. And there's even reports saying that people are actually doing more exercise. They're increasing their walking time, their running, cycling, and it's really interesting to see all of that.
And going outside to exercise is not that easy to get the motivation. Even before, I used to listen to music, but now I don't. I run in complete silence. And I feel like I enjoy having that time to think or even not to think about anything and like kind of be free. And and I feel like being close with your thoughts inside is not that good, especially for people who have mental health problems.
Yeah, of course, I absolutely agree. And like when you go running outside with no music, it's quiet, it's nice. There's no because there's a lot of chaos in the world right
Mm-hmm.
now, so it's really really nice.
Yeah, it's like there's no distraction and you don't even have to talk with anyone.
Yeah, and we don't know how long this is going to end. So, I mean, we need to adapt and we need to see how we can help ourselves.
And the fact that we don't know how long this is going to last, I think those are very difficult conditions for mental health. I actually spoke with Susan Guest, who's a registered occupational psychologist, about lockdown and its influence on our mental well-being.
There's, I suppose, a lot of ways that mental health's being impacted. If you think about it, it is actually quite a scary situation. So there's real threats out there to people's health and health of family and maybe older relatives. But then there's the taking away of what people use to support the mental health. So people tend to meet people. They might go to the gym, they go to the cinema or gig, and all those type of things at the moment we can't do. So the positive things that support mental health are more difficult to access.
And so, you as a psychologist, have you observed any changes in people's mental health?
There is that difficulty around motivation. It's difficult to motivate yourself to get out of bed when there's not really much to do or you can't see people. Noticing increases in anxiety because there is real threats out there, but then sometimes a bit of a worry and time on your own can make a problem that was quite small much bigger. So I'm certainly seeing difficulties around depression, anxiety, and those type of things being more prevalent. Yeah.
What would you say we can individually do to kind of support ourselves throughout this period?
I think one of the things is try to limit your exposure to the news. You could probably watch COVID news 24 hours a day if you kept flicking through the channels. So I would suggest that maybe you pick a source of news and stick to that. Look at your social media and what's your social media full of? Is it full of people who are talking about doom and gloom, or is it full of the conspiracy theorists? And is that making you feel good? Is it informative? If it's not, then you can look at either limiting your time on social media, or you can unfollow people who are maybe not making you feel great. So the communication side of thing, I think, is important.
So it's kind of controlling your own bubble.
Yeah, because, we've not got control over what the restrictions are. It's more about how we expose ourselves to them.
And would you say that physical exercise can also be helpful in terms of well-being?
Yeah, we know that exercise is good for our physical and mental health. So exercise in a way that you feel able to. There's been some really kind of quite toxic posts out there about how terrible it would be if you've gained weight. But you don't need to come out of lockdown buff. But if you can go for a little walk every day, which just makes you feel better, I suppose it doesn't need to be one of those things that you have to do, or it doesn't have to be about weight loss or gaining muscle or anything. It's more about, exercise because moving your body makes you feel good.
Mm-hmm. And I think my last question is going to be about the future, actually. So, how can we prepare for the comeback to normal life? What if someone is worried or anxious about that?
I think that's a really good question, actually, and it's going to be quite difficult adjusting back to normal life. What I would say is I think the restrictions are going to lift quite slowly. I would look at grading into what were your pre-COVID activities. So if you are really worried about going to a crowded supermarket, try and pick a time when you know it's not going to be as busy. If you used to enjoy going to football, but you're anxious about going to that, go to smaller non-league matches to start off with and get used to being in a crowd and then build up to those type of things. I think, moderation and kind of graded activity would be the key, really.
The last thing we mentioned, going back to normal world, I think it is going to be so strange. Now, whenever I watch a movie and see a crowd of people not wearing a mask, I'm like, what are you doing? First of all, there's no social distancing, which is crazy. And then they're not wearing masks, and I'm like, please put a mask on. Like, it doesn't cost that much. Just put it on. What do you do, Yeva, to help with your well-being?
I do a lot of things. I try to exercise. Sometimes I try to move my body. I try to move my mind as well. I usually like to journal and write down my thoughts.
Oh yeah, how is it going with journaling? I can never get into that.
Yeah, it does take time. I don't do it every day because then it's tiring. But I do it whenever I feel like there's a lot of thoughts in my head. I write down how I was feeling like up until this point, and then I write down how I will be feeling tomorrow, just like it's already is happening. So.
Yeah. We also have our producer with us, Ben. What do you do to cope with that situation?
Well, for me, I've found that one of the worst things is almost a lack of productivity. You're not able to be as productive as you want to, and that's what causes a lot of like frustration and mental health, like anxiety for me. One of the most really like helpful things for me was picking up like old hobbies which I used to do, or new hobbies. So I've been playing a lot of chess, which I got back into.
Oh yeah, I play chess too, yeah, with my dad. I can never beat him.
Learning and getting better at a skill I found to be really, really motivating and just a little boost for the mental health.
Yeah, I also feel like reducing the bad things in your life can be very helpful. I try to reduce my exposure to news. I remember in the beginning I watched a lot of news. Like I watched a 24 hours news channel. It was always on in the living room because everything was new, everything was unknown. But now
Yes.
I can't. Every time I hear that something bad happened, on top of the pandemic, is just too much. I can't do it anymore.
Yes, I was doing that as well because it almost is as like a professional habit of checking the news all the time. But I found it very emotionally tiring. There's this thing called the compassion fatigue, where like even the feelings of compassion and things like that, they're still tiring and they're still makes us feel in a more of a negative way.
The surroundings of our lives have an impact on our well-being, and I think it's
Absolutely,
just one
yes.
tip to solve that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have family members who are sharing conspiracy theories
Hmm.
on Instagram and, talking about how the government is trying to control us, how the vaccine is going to spy on us. These kind of conspiracies doesn't make any kind of positive outcome to anyone, so I just avoid it.
Ben mentioned that he picked up his old hobbies. I also got some new ones. I did start knitting, so now I'm kind of like a grandma, I could say. I go to sleep early and I knit.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've actually had started a similar kind of a hobby.
Mhm.
I took my old grandmother's sewing machine and I started trying to sew some things. I sewed for myself a mask because that's a must have.
Wow. What about things that we miss? What do you miss about, I guess, the normal times?
Oh my God. When was the normal times? I can't even remember anymore.
I know.
Um, I really miss actually just like traveling or at least leaving the city because
Hmm.
like I've been in the same place, same house. I haven't left the city to go anywhere. I haven't seen anything.
I feel like people who didn't like traveling now just want to go somewhere.
Before everything got locked down, I was like planning to start new classes, to move my body. I was
Hmm.
planning to start pole dancing because I think it's such a
It's
hard
incredible.
sport.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing and it's like such a difficult sport. Like it moves your body, it gives like you have to be flexible, you have to be strong and it's just amazing and I cannot do that.
Hmm. I feel
So
like in terms of fitness, it's also been very difficult for businesses, for gyms. Gyms closed so many times last year, and it has to be difficult to be in that industry right now.
so I think that's it for our podcast this week.
We hope that all of you who are listening are doing well, but if not, please don't be afraid to reach out to people surrounding you or just ask for professional help. And right now, I'm Yulia.
And I'm Yeva. And thank you for listening. The podcast was hosted by Yeva Patejunita.
And Yulia Opshondek. It was produced and edited by Ben Conway.